50 total matches between a Hathaway deck and a Celestial Being. Which one came out on top? So if you love videos like this, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Let's go ahead and get into it. I will say this, when it came to the 50 rounds here, I didn't track how often I went first versus second, but across both decks, going second felt significantly stronger. But before we reveal the results, let's go over some key takeaways of both of the decks here. The Hathaway decks can field higher quality units in the mid to late game, where the Celestial Being deck is a little bit more faster, and they rely on their pilots very heavily. Both decks run the same amount of units. Well, if you treat Jagan as a command card, which you basically have to, then both decks have about the same amount of units. However, the Celestial Being deck can field 14 playable units by level 3, where the Hathaway deck only has 11. And that difference right there, guys, is big. Alright, so here are the results. The Celestial Being deck taking it by a crazy, insane 76% win rate over the Hathaway deck. That is tier 0 territory, guys. I'm telling you, you could still eke out some wins with Hathaway. However, they're going to be not as likely. And let's go ahead and go over just some quick reasons. There's a lot, but we're going to go over some here. For example, the Celestial Being deck just has a more reliable blocker. This blocker, all it really needs is a pilot and essentially just has blocker, where Hathaway's version relies on your opponent having at least 3 units in play, and sometimes they can just dodge that. Also, the Celestial Being deck has a redirect command card. This command card opens you up to just being able to swing at your opponent and still be able to control their board. You can select who they're attacking into. It's effectively giving any of your rested units blocker at this point. This card can be backbreaking when used correctly, and especially if you don't respect it. And also, Fatal Strike being in the Celestial Being deck is just this thing knocks out all of the early cards that the Hathaway deck needs to rely on to be able to just stave off their opponent while they get into the mid game. All their 4/3s don't matter when they have Fatal Strike in their hand. But I did learn some ways you can win with the Hathaway deck. As you can see here, I didn't get completely blown out all the time. I did eke out some wins with it, and here's kind of the reasons why. In your mulligans, you want to make sure you have as many messers as possible. The messers are going to be what you start to rip the game off with, and generally most of them have 4 AP, and this is often enough to kill most opposing units even when they're paired. And when you get that Jagan in your hand, the best card in this deck, I'm just lying with you guys, this card is awful. If you get this card, just play it. Even if it's weak, it gives you something to buff with, like your Valiant base or even a pilot. It's just kind of just there. I know what you're thinking. You should keep this in your hand at all times so it could be like Penelope Father. That was the only time you would ever like skip playing it, is if you actually have the Penelope, and if you have maybe the pair. You also need the pair with it in order to be able to get that effect going off. And even then, you still have to attack into your enemy player in order to get the draw discard effect. This is brutal because you're usually behind at this point and you want to trade units instead, so you might not even be able to get that off. The Hathaway pilots, both of them, are just kind of awkward and have narrow conditions. Hathaway can create turns where you literally can't put damage anywhere. It effectively does nothing. In lane, only activates on Penelope, which is a level 7. So otherwise it does nothing. But when we talk about the Celestial Being guys, they don't really have any linked restrictions. They reference just other Celestial Beings or if they're on one. And pretty much at that point, you just get the picking of the litter. Even if you can't immediately attack after pairing, you still get some type of value. You don't get any value like that in the Hathaway deck. So long story short, Celestial Being decks, they integrate naturally, kind of like how the Cyber new types work in the red decks that are currently out right now, whereas the Hathaway pilots just feel conditional and fragile. Here's some notes for the Celestial Being player when you're playing against the Hathaway. Not that you really need the assistance, quite honestly, but it's always good to respect the Gustav. It only gains blocker when you have 3 units in play, so just keep that in mind. So even if you swing with 2 and it can't block the first 2, if you try to link pair, if your other 2 units are still there, then Gustav can be able to block your 3rd guy. Also, Alleluia, he pretty much directly counters this blocker, so if you have that play, go ahead and go for it. And also, if you want a really big, cheap, strong body, go ahead and use Kyrios plus Setsuna for a cheap 6/5, which is major early. Alright, so we picked on Jagan a little bit. Let's talk about this little guy here. So he's pretty much a command card, so just understand that. There are some cards in the game, you can't really treat them as a unit. They're effectively command cards, or they're effectively like an enchantment or something else. They're just taking up a unit slot. An example of this is the Zaku Sniper from the first set. I wouldn't ever use this as a unit slot. This is effectively a command card where you play it and it essentially has support and you are able to essentially draw a card. And that's kind of like how you have to treat it. So like I said before, just play the Jagan. And along with Jagan, there are some other bad cards in this deck here that don't really do too much. And that's Lady Luck. Lady Luck essentially is just a super high level ping card for 1. Sure, you're probably going to knock out a couple creatures here and there. And yay, if you have the Hathaway link, and it only works on the Hathaway link. It does not even work if you have the Lane link there. So keep that in mind because he's Earth Federation. All right, let's talk about some overperforming cards. And these ones might actually surprise you. For the Hathaway deck, we're talking about the Messer type F01. This card actually overperformed. I originally thought that this was just like a weaker ago, but it also doesn't have that detriment. You're gonna actually get a lot of 2-for-1s with this card quite often. And there is a easy target in Curios in your opponent's deck here. So if they have it in play, you're usually gonna be able to just shoot this for 1 while attacking into something else. The base card Davio also exceeded expectations here. Just being able to constantly trade in and just get that extra heal. Yes, it's kind of like you're just giving repair 2 to kind of any unit of your choosing for an extra 2, so that's really helpful. We kind of explained it earlier. Alleluia plus Curios just dominates the early game, so that's a standout card set that you really want to see here. And of course, not even necessarily the link pair, but just the card in general. Lock On is insane. I think he's probably the best pilot in this deck. Just oh man, yeah, that card is insane. Yeah, guys, well, that's just the matchup between the two. Not really much to say. One kind of overwhelmingly defeats the other ones. But I would say this, guys, even if you get the Hathaway deck, you might even fight against some other Hathaway decks. So I didn't do any matchups where there were essentially the same deck versus each other. I'm pretty sure those are just 50-50s. But honestly, guys, regardless of what decks you play, just go ahead and get to your local event. Support your local LGS. Well, if they were supporting. Don't support any store that tries to sell you out market, guys. That's not the way to do it. Hopefully don't charge you too much, and hopefully you're able to get your Celestial Drive deck and have some fun. All right, one thing I just want to say, definitely hit that like and subscribe button, guys, because playing 50 games on Mobile Arena, you guys know how long people take on some of their turns. So yeah, just help me out, guys, by hitting that like subscribe button. Just know I put that work in for you. All right, that's pretty much it for me, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. I know life can be hard out there, but keep your head up, keep moving forward, and most importantly, let nothing stop you. Peace out, guys.